everyone. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Let me make sure mic is working. My name is Brittany Lewis, and welcome to this week's Paint With Me Live. Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And today we're picking back up with, of course, the Four of Wands, which is the card that we've been working on for the past several Sundays. I'll show you guys the progress that I have made on that over just the last week or so. And what we'll be working on today is going to be probably the figures, just to kind of change it up. But before we get started, if you would like to support me in any way, shape, or form, the fastest, easiest, and quickest way to do that is just to hit the like button. The like button does a whole lot. Hold on, I got a heater going. Let me turn this thing off. All right. The fastest, easiest, and quickest way to support me is, of course, to hit the like button. And if you like watching live art videos, hey, TN lady. Okay, great. I'm so glad she said she can hear me just fine. Thank you so much. Another way that you can support me, of course, is to hit the subscribe button. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. So if you would like to be in that number, please do me that solid. hit the subscribe button. But if you would like to take your support a little bit further, I do have a website, and everything will be listed down in the description, where you can pick up journals and prints and all kinds of things. Everything in that shop ships out next day. Everything that's listed except for the canvas prints I have in stock. So if you like it, we can, and you purchase it, we can ship that out to you, especially as the holidays are rolling around. And I'll show you just about what that looks like. So this is my website, B Lewis Arts. Again, all of that is going to be listed down in the description. If you click on shop, now of course, if you're looking at this on your phone, it's going to look slightly different. But if you find the little 3-bar thing and click on shop, it'll take you straight to the shop, where I have all kinds of prints, canvas prints, t-shirts. I think I have poster prints as well. I do have books as well. All of that will be listed there. Again, everything ships out next day. So if you would like to take your support a little bit further, or if you like the art that I create and would like to own a piece for yourself, that is there. And again, all of that is down in the description. Another thing that you can do, if you're interested and you like the way that I work, you would like to hire me for your project, that will be in the description as well. All right, so we got the Four of Wands from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And I don't know if y'all are tired of looking at this picture yet, but we're gonna be here for a minute. I have made some great strides on it. So in Wednesday's stream, which is our Bring Your Own Project Live, I worked a little bit on the background, and I did a little bit of work on the canopy, and I started to work on the flowers at the top of the screen. So in my reference panel, this is sort of what we're going for, with a little bit of a twist, because it's not quite exact. But this is sort of the idea for this particular card, for this particular project. So I did do some work on the background. The canopy is taking me a little bit longer than I had anticipated. And I think it's because I'm trying to capture the look of leaves sort of shining through. And it is difficult, right? And I'm also following like a roadmap based on the way that I drew it from my reference. So trying to match that up has been a little bit of a challenge. So what I did, just to sort of give myself a break and allow me to see where this was going, is I started to work on the flowers above. And I think that made me feel a little bit better about it. Right, I was starting to kind of see it, even though there's not much there to it yet. I can kind of see it coming through. So what I'm going to do today is not related to either of those aspects of this particular card and this illustration. I think I'm going to work back on the figures. And I'm going to do that because for me, drawing people is probably one of the easiest and most relaxing things to do. I thoroughly enjoy it. So I think the last time we worked on the figures, I was working on leveling out the flats in our male figure. So I think today I'm just going to work on the hair. So I hope you guys are doing well. I don't know if I said that yet, whether you're watching this live or the replay. I really appreciate you for being here. Now, we have not been here for a couple of Sundays, right? I've gotten to a place now where I think I've started to enjoy the Wednesday streams just a little bit more. I think it's because of the music, and I can go a little bit longer. And there's not necessarily I won't say the pressure, but there's not so much pressure or like a need to speak a whole lot. So I think I really, really like those chiller streams. So if you like something like that, where we just kind of work together and listen to music, join me on Wednesdays. I'm here at 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. So usually on Sundays, it depends. Some days I'm like super pumped up about it because I have something that I want to talk to you guys about. And some days it's like, oh goodness, I don't know. I guess I put a little pressure on myself. I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about today, but we'll wing it, as we tend to do, and go and see where it goes. Right? So if all else fails, I can explain to you guys what it is that I'm doing on the screen. So now in the reference panel, which is this picture, which looks like the photoshopped image with the two backgrounds put together in the models, I'm going to be leaning heavily into the lighting of these models. Now, I talked about this before. I tend to work extremely dark when it comes to this project. I don't think that's something that I intentionally did, right? It was just kind of the way that it worked out for me. So in that, I have to make a conscious effort to be very aware of how the lighting and things like that is set up. It does not help me that my reference is pretty dark because they're standing under a canopy. But hey, Montreal, all right, come on, chat. If you're in the chat, don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm so happy to see you guys in the chat. But I'm leaning heavily on these references, which is the reason why I put the reference together in the first place. So I don't have to lean so much onto my imagination and making decisions halfway through the process, right? So when I'm planning for illustrations, when I'm working on projects, whether it's my own project or I'm working for a client, I do tend to make sure that I have a very strong foundation in my sketches, as well as a very strong reference point. So when people come to hire me for their projects, I tend to ask them, I ask them a lot about what kinds of things they're attracted to as they're describing their needs and whatever it is that they want for their particular project. So I ask them to send me references, and I do that because sometimes it's easier to show a thing sometimes it's easier to show a thing than it is to explain it, right? So I like to ask for references. I work from reference. I'm queen reference. I'm all for a good, solid reference. So sometimes when I have images such as this one, I like to put my references together. And this is something that I did for this image. Now, putting it together, I was looking specifically for canopies, sort of so that I can create a wedding arch. That was the goal that I wanted to do for this particular image. I wanted to create that sort of, that wedding canopy look, so that it looks like they're actually jumping the broom and walking down the aisle. That was what I was going for. Typically for these types of references, I like to use a website called Pexels. So if you are into drawing, if you're into graphic design, you just kind of need some references or some images that you can use without that are royalty free, meaning you don't necessarily have to worry about the copyrights of them. Pexels is my go-to place for that. Used to be Google, of course, many years ago, but with Google, you sort of run into the risk of using something that you may not, especially if you're using it as is, that you may not have permission to use, which can cause a little bit of a headache later on down the line. And we don't want that, right? We want to be able to have as easy a time as we can. Hey, Draw Sketchbook. Oh, look at y'all. Cutting up. I'm so happy to see everybody in the chat. So Pexels is my go-to website for references. I love Pexels. You can get some really, really great high quality images from Pexels. So that is where I got the background. Now, this isn't one solid background. The majority of it is one. So the pink bushes and the leaves and all of that, the pillars, that's all a part of one thing. And then I took a second background and kind of slapped the canopy over top because it gave what I was wanting it to give, right? So that is how I organize my references. But yeah, when people are hiring me for certain things, I am very pro send me what you like, right? And that way I can have an idea of how to best service and design for you or illustrate for you. And I can also see if it's something that's feasible for me to be able to do. Now, as someone who's done quite a lot of art over the years, lots and lots of different things, from hotel signage. I think I mentioned that in a reel that I did recently. I legit used to design hotel signs, so the inside of a hotel where you'll have the restroom this way, room numbers and all that. I used to design that for a company that I worked for here in Memphis. And I also have done all kinds of signage for different things, right? From different companies and aspects and things like that. Things like that, you kind of have to follow, of course, a guideline. But on the off chance that you get a little creative freedom, having an idea of what your client likes and what they're needing is great to start with, right? Sometimes we have the idea in our minds that if we have all the creative freedom in the world, it'll be great. But you're also trying to interpret someone else's vision, right? Based on your skill and expertise. So I just like for people to send me your reference. So that helps out a whole lot. Now, anytime I can kind of use that reference and of course create something that I like, then we're cooking with grease. We're cooking with gas, right? It works out for the better. But again, when you're doing projects for other people, you're sort of having to interpret what it is that they like based on, the conversation. And of course, having sort of a visual reference helps out a whole lot, and it translates to the illustrations that I do as well. Now, the trouble that I run into sometimes is that you'll find people who will want exactly what the reference is, right? So if you have someone who is hiring you or have hired me for branding, sometimes they'll send somebody else's logo and they're like, I want this. And it's like, well, we can't do that, right? So part of my responsibility as a designer and as an illustrator is to say, okay, I like that you like this, right? But just to keep us both out of legal trouble, let's figure out a way to create something that is uniquely yours, that can be copywritten and, used in marketing and sales and all of those kinds of things, without any of us getting in any trouble, right? And that is, of course, again, uniquely yours. So that happens. So I think as a creative sometimes, and I'll say backtrack a little bit. One of the things that I'm finding that we're running into with the advent of AI is there's a little bit of a disconnect between what actually happens as we're designing and as we're illustrating for illustrators and graphic designers, and what the expectations are, right? So a lot of times, because of the AI, not even because of the AI, I think this has been going on for a while prior to AI becoming a thing, but there was always this idea of things being done extremely fast. I think a lot of that kind of comes with the Amazon mindset, because we get things next day when we order them. The drawback is that because people don't quite understand all that is involved in creating designs and illustrations, they tend to think that because you're good at it, because you love to do it, because you're creative and all of that, you can do it extremely fast. And I might be able to, right? You can do it extremely fast. So because you can do it extremely fast, I shouldn't have to pay you much for it, right? That is one of the things that we run into. Or there's just sort of an odd expectation about how fast things should be created and how much they should cost, right? Anything that you guys see me do that I've done, like I just did her hair pretty quickly, it took me years to get to that point, right? Used to be one of the first to tell you that straight hairstyles was one of the things that I was not very good at, but because I practiced, because I have the experience and the expertise, it didn't take me 2 minutes. We've been streaming 12 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to do this, right? So you have to kind of take that into consideration. So today on Threads, I saw someone who was offering a job, and this is such example of people not necessarily knowing exactly what is involved in certain aspects of creativity, and therefore not necessarily valuing it, and not valuing it and showing the lack of value in the way that they pay. So there was a magazine, I don't recall the name of the magazine, but there's a post on Threads where there's a lady who is trying to hire someone, or a company, I should say, I don't know if it's a woman or not. There's a company who is looking to hire a graphic designer to put together a magazine layout that is like 30 to 40 pages. Okay, cool. Their budget though is like $300 to $400, which I think, if that's your budget, that's cool. Sometimes when your budget is that low, you kind of have to find alternative solutions. But the problem is that is quite a lot of work for very little pay, right? So I've also seen people who are like, yeah, we want to do a children's book, and I don't know why it's taking this person so long. It's only been 2 weeks. Things take time, right? Even with experts, even with people who have been doing this for years and years and years. It takes time, and it takes a great deal of trust and communication and a great deal of back and forth. And so even though we're used to seeing things, and you can get an AI post done or prompted pretty quickly, right? Or you could go to Fiverr and get someone to slap something together for you relatively quickly and inexpensively. If you're wanting to do something quality takes time. You can either be cheap about it and get low quality a lot of the times, or you can sort of be realistic about it and take your time. Hey, Black Zetsu, take your time and hire an expert or someone who can really sort of bring your vision to life. So a lot of times when we see people who are complaining about the services of creatives, more often than not, they're not necessarily paying actual people who have sort of longevity in the game. And that could be for a number of reasons. A lot of the times money is the issue, and that's fair, right? You have to start where you have to start. A lot of times, again, we have these dreams and we are not necessarily realistic, or not aware of how much things cost and how much time things take. So you kind of learn that as you go. But I think websites such as Fiverr, such as Upwork, like the AI, just sort of, they set up these false expectations, right? So if you're interested, if you like or interested in hiring a graphic designer or illustrator, anything like that, I do have a few videos on this channel that kind of break down the process. Because again, a lot of times we'll see these people who are like, yeah, I had a scammer and this, that, and the third, and I can't trust illustrators. But again, a lot of times that's dictated by your budget, because your budget is going to tell you or sort of open access to certain levels of experience and expertise. But as a professional, all of that kind of goes in mind. So for me, not to toot my own horn, but when people hire me to do their jobs, I like to set the bar extremely high, right? The prices are going to reflect it. Nowadays, it used to be a time where I was severely undercharged until I knew better and started to sort of evaluate whether or not I could afford personally to work at the same pace. So I began to charge based on my experience and expertise. Now, I've been a graphic designer and illustrator since 2008. Okay, I got my first professional job as a designer because I worked for the company that did the hotel signage, and then I was also illustrating on the side, and I was getting paid for it. That made me a professional. So I've been doing this for a really, really long time. And in that, I've seen all kinds of clients. I've had people who will say, well, I promise me and you gonna work together and I'm gonna buy this and I'm gonna buy that. And so when we have those situations come up and they don't do it, it used to be a time I would take it so personally. I was like, oh man, they said they was gonna do this, and this, and they were gonna hire me for this and didn't do it. As time progressed, as you become more sort of a veteran in it, you don't take that kind of stuff seriously unless there's money unless there's a contract signed and a deposit paid. Like, I appreciate it, but like, we just talking, right? That's kind of how I've learned to have to look at it and cope with it. But you kind of come across all kinds of things. Again, I've had just saw that post today about the magazine in the 30-40 pages for $300. I've had a conversation on the exact same type of project with the exact same type of sort of realization that that's not a lot of money. That's a lot of work for not a lot of money, right? So the problem that a lot of creatives are having is being able to sort of keep up with it, make a living wage, also prove our worth and our value in the things that we do. Because again, now we have AI, we have other means where smaller businesses, which is who I would cater to a lot, just can't afford it right now, so they're going to alternative means. It was already a tussle having to like prove your value and your worth to those types of clients, and now they have other means which kind of devalues or sort of sets up a stage for devaluing actual creatives. So it's been a mess. it's been I won't say a mess, it's definitely been something interesting these last couple of years. I would say everything sort of changed around, again, 2020. So we had it where, of course, 2020, everything shut down. So it was very interesting because there was a lot of support because the people weren't doing anything else, right? So they were at home. So there was a lot of growth in 2020, I would say. Even though we had all of the things going on in the world, for a creative, I noticed a huge amount of growth in 2020, 2021, maybe even 2022. Around mid 2022, there was a bit of a dip, because now the sort of reality of sort of catching up to what has happened over the last couple of years from 2020, 2021 is starting to become a real thing. Now we're really going to have to be very wary. A lot of clients were being very wary about their spending and budgeting, and all of that took place. Very valid, right? 23, there was an increase for me in clientele, right? But again, I was running into a lot of the clients who were expecting certain things but not necessarily having the information to sort of mitigate those expectations, right? So the expectation and the reality were two separate things. For example, I worked for a company who did children's books for independent authors, and they had this whole program where they take authors from step A to B of publishing, and then they set up a sort of a marketplace for authors to be able to hire professionals, right? Sounded great. I like the premise of it because I enjoy helping new business owners, new authors, independent creators. That's sort of my wheelhouse. I love to work with those types of people because, again, I'm setting the bar high so that when they go and hire the next person, they have better expectations of, what they're looking for in the creatives. The problem with that was that the people who ran that particular program had only had experiences with websites like Fiverr and Upwork. So they were teaching a group of people how to navigate those types of spaces with creatives who didn't necessarily frequent those places, if that makes sense. So for instance, I was one I've never worked on. I've tried it. Now, when it first came out, Fiverr sounded like a great idea. I was like, cool, let me try it. Upwork, the same thing. Sounded like a great idea. I was like, okay, cool. If I'm getting clients on my own, I can have these people over here. But quickly you find out that it's just a weird space, right? And you're having to compete with people who whose cost of living may not be the same as your cost of living. So they may be able to afford to charge $50 for little things, and where you would normally charge upwards of $500 or more, right? So it's a very interesting space to be in. But for the people who were running this particular program, they had never really worked with anyone outside of that space, but they were recruiting people outside of that space to be a part of their program. Now, initially, it sounded like a great idea. I was all for it. I was very much into wanting to help independent authors, and I still do to this day. Would love to help independent authors sort of get quality work done and have a great experience and all of that, right? But the problem again came in. The expectation of what it should be was very different from the reality of what it should be. And that became a bit of an issue to try to navigate. Now, I didn't stay with them very long because, again, it was something it just wasn't feasible. It didn't make sense for me to do. And I just couldn't afford to move forward. But when you have situations like that, it's just, I don't know, you kind of, it's interesting because, again, as creatives, we're looking for clients, but we're in these situations where people are expecting to pay you. I think, like, I saw someone wanting to offer, like, I think $500 for a 32-page children's book, and you know, it doesn't make sense, right? So education is very key, but I think a lot of that kind of falls on us as creatives because we're so tight-lipped about our processes, right? So with streams like this one, where I can show you guys how long it's taken me to put together a single card, there creates a space for appreciation for the arts, right? Because you guys can see that, yes, I did her hair very fast, but I've been working on this picture for like a month or so, right? Several hours are going into this. Now imagine adding to that your client, right, who has their own opinions and their own goals. They want to see certain things, the back and forth of communication, contracts and deposits and all of that adds to the time that it takes to actually create. So I say all that to say, as creatives, I think one of the things that we are going to have to do collectively is start to share the process of our creations, right? From start to finish. And I don't think it's a matter of sort of, I know some of the worry I'll say has been, I don't want to show my process because why should I have to prove anything or anything like that? But that's just sort of the landscape that we find ourselves in. Because again, there's always been an issue of valuing artwork, right? Valuing creatives in their field, valuing experience and expertise. And now, because we have things like AI, things like Canva, which I use religiously, don't get me wrong, as a professional, I love Canva for what it is, right? But you have people who are in the DIY space, I should say, and they may not know why they should hire you as an artist, why they should hire you to do their children's book, why they should hire you to do their branding, and why they should hire you to do their book covers when they can go and type in a prompt and, you know, do that thing. Now, whether I agree with it or not, I do not. But, you know, I do understand that for some, that is the most feasible solution, because why should this ain't me saying this, but I think the thinking is, why should I pay you X amount of dollars when I can go and do it over here for way cheaper? So we have to sort of kind of be a little transparent about what it is again that we do. I think the live streams are great. I think for a lot of us, and myself included, being sort of seen is always nerve-wracking. I think that's what keeps so many of us from sharing the process. But I think in the long run, once you sort of start to do it, it becomes a lot easier to do. It becomes less nerve-wracking. And, you know, you kind of level out and you find your lane. You just be yourself, and whoever you draw to you, you draw to you. But I think that's going to be the way that we're going to have to move forward. For real. So the other thing is, I think that we as creatives are going to have to be very creative about, no pun intended, but we're going to have to be very, very creative about how we use our creativity, right? What services we offer because of the way things are shifting. What services we offer? Do we move to a more product-based business? What sort of pocket can we find within that? Now, I say all this to to say, I say all this speaking about a certain kind of client, right? Again, most of my clients are small businesses, first time business owners, independent creators, independent authors, very just people on a smaller scale, I would say, whose companies are on a smaller scale. Now, the world is not limited to just those people. So if you can find a way to sort of get to those medium-sized to larger businesses, then all the better, right? A lot of this won't even apply. That comes with its own set of obstacles. But in the meantime, for most creatives, especially the ones who are starting out, most of us have worked with smaller companies and things like that. So we're going to have to find a way, if that's your lane, if those are the types of people that you're working with, we're going to have to find a way to reach maybe a different audience, right? Or if we're going to continue to reach those people, find a different way to reach those people. So all of that's been very interesting over these last couple of years. This year specifically, I think has been one of the worst years, right? Just because of the way that the economy is going. It's a bit of a trickle down effect. Now, again, speaking to those clients who are like first time business owners, a lot of those people are working other full-time jobs. And so having to balance the way the economy is going, right? The way that people are sort of losing their jobs left and right. A lot of them just cannot afford to hire graphic designers and illustrators. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. In the meantime, though, I think our job, again, is just going to be to educate people on what it is that we actually do, right? And how we can best service new people or service people in sort of their projects and things like that. So, yeah, it's been very interesting. I think as much as we like to sort of beat up on people, like there was a lady who put out a book with, I think she was a mom who was a post office driver or something like that. And she was talking about representation, and she created the book and she used AI art. As much as I am pro hire an actual artist, I can actually see, I think it would be disingenuous for me to be like, well, she should be able to hire this, that, and the third. She may not know how. She may also not have the funds to. So, I mean, we're in a very interesting time in space, I would say, in the world. And I think it's affecting so many people on so many different levels. But if you are wanting to speak to somebody, want to learn more about hiring a graphic designer and illustrator, because I know I went off on a huge tangent there. But if there's something that you are very interested in learning about, again, I do have a few videos on this channel about how to go about that process. And again, I've been doing this for a very, very long time in both the office space. So, of course, I have experience working in an office on different kinds of projects as well as freelancing. So I've learned a lot, learned a whole lot in this journey of mine. And I'm very, very happy to share from my experiences. Again, anything that I experience, you may not experience as a creative. You may not even experience as a person who is hiring a creative, right? But if I can help in any way, shape, or form, I'm more than happy to do that for anyone who is interested. So what I've done on this illustration is I worked on the bride's hair a little bit. I didn't do a whole lot, not too much on her hair. I'll probably come back in now that I have the sketch off and add some flyaways and different things like that, so it looks like she's in movement. Right now it's looking maybe a little too three-dimensional, so I'll come back in and sort of break that up in just a bit. What I'm going to be working on now is my groom's face, I think. Now, when I was drawing this, and this tends to happen, I can draw sometimes and draw people because I'm making these faces up as I go. For the most part, I think there's only 2 instances in this deck where I have actual people. One of them is me and the other is my son, but everybody else's face is just kind of made up and just kind of let their faces morph into whatever they morphed into. But for whatever reason, this particular character, and there are a couple in this deck, actually look like people to me, and I can't put my finger on who he looked like. But what I am doing is just sort of adding in the highlights. Now his skin tone is chocolatey enough, brown enough, has quite enough depth to it. So I'm just going to start to add in some highlights and things like that following my 3D model. Now I'll zoom in so you guys can see exactly what I'm looking at. So in my reference panel, if I'm looking and examining where the light is hitting this character, the light seems to be hitting him from the top, right? So all of his forehead and the top of his head is going to be lit, right? The bridge of his nose is brighter than the underside of his chin. So I'm just kind of paying attention to where the light sort of hits and what value it's set at. So where's my brightest white? Where's my darkest dark? paying attention to that, and then I'm going to sort of put in his facial features following that particular guideline. All right, so yeah, being a creative these days is very, like I said, it's very, very interesting. It's been a very, very interesting road to sort of look back on with how things were just 6 years ago, right? 2019, how things were, how they changed in 2020, and how they've sort of morphed in these last 5 years. So it's, I think one of the things that is going to have to, again, be is we're going to have to show our process, but also we can't give up, because at a certain point, being an actual artist and being an actual creative and having the skill to make things is going to be a superpower. And in my humble opinion, it's going to become even more valuable. It's kind of like when the Clips album dropped, right? I think it was, people was like going crazy for it because it was so good. The quality of it was so good. And I think the quality of it was so good, it stood out so much because there's been so much garbage music come out, right, in that particular space. So when you have something that is quality, when you have something that's crafted, handmade, man-made, human drawn, all of that, I think that's going to become a bit of a superpower. And again, showing that you can do that, showing that you have a skill, even if you're showing sort of the process of learning the skill, is going to become very important, I feel, in the next, in the coming days, right, in the coming years, in the years to come, I should say. Now, if you want to hop on here with me, right, and draw with me, if I could figure out how to do that, I think that would be so much fun, just to sort of have a drawing session. Maybe we could do it on Zoom or something like that and share live. I've been in some places where I think the Guild does something like that. I believe that African American Graphic Designers Group, I think they do like a logo Olympics where they create logos together and just sort of share the process of creating. I think creating something like that would be a whole lot of fun, no matter where your skill level is. No matter how long you've been doing it, I think being amongst your fellow creatives, it's just a fun time all together. We can learn, and I can learn from you guys. You can learn from me. I think it would be a great time. But we're going to have to figure some things out in the coming years. Find in our pocket what are we going to offer to the world, right? Now, with that, I think it's going to be even more important for you to create the things that you actually want to see. Okay, so it's going to be real easy to sort of fall into, okay, let me see what's selling, because that happens, right? We want to find out what's selling. But I think it's going to be even more so important to find your own sort of voice in your artistic skills and then lean into that voice, right? So the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is a great example of that. Now, granted, this started in 2019, but it came from the same sentiment. Was not able to find the deck that I liked. So I decided to make it. Now, again, y'all hear me say this quite often. I didn't expect it to take this long to make, and I'm more than halfway done, so I'm happy about that, right? But I think being able to tell your own authentic story from your own unique perspective is going to be where the money is, right? Not to say that you should be chasing it. Chase it if you want to, or whatever the case is. But I think that's where the success is going to lie, because chances are, if you want to see something, if you have a particular story, there's going to be somebody out there who's going to connect to that story. If not your particular story, they're going to connect to the fact that you yourself are being authentically you. Okay, I'm gonna give you a great example of this. So before I stream, I usually pregame, not drink it or anything like that. I usually listen to music, and I love live music. Like I think maybe I was a musician in a past life or something, but I love musical instruments and I love seeing people play. And more importantly, I love to see people like be themselves, and like you can always tell when people enjoy exactly what they do. So there's a musician by the name of, I think, Leon Knight. He got a song called Yes I Do. And I don't know how I came across this song. I think he popped up on the reel or something I was watching. And he has this whole like Rick James, Prince, this like the Minnesota sound. And I don't know why that song tickles me so much, right? It's so much fun to watch, because I can tell that they are having fun playing this song. And the video that I watched is live. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. It's a live rendition of this particular video. Maybe not. I'll do it later. But he's playing this song live. They got the whole 80s thing. He got his locks cut into a bang. He looked like Rick James, right? And like they're playing the guitars and what is the thing called? It's like a keyboard guitar. I don't know. But I'm drawn to them because it seems like to me they're being authentically themselves. Now, granted, the sound is very much a Prince, New Day. No, it's a New Day, Morris Day, not New Day. Sorry, Morris Day sound, right? But in the current landscape, just watching them perform that song, I don't know, it do something to me. It really does. So I am drawn to them because they're being uniquely themselves, because they could sound like everybody else on the radio. Granted, again, they do sound like Morris Day, they sound like Prince, The Time, that's what I'm thinking of, Morris Day and The Time. They sound like those guys, but it's still uniquely them. And I think the lyrically it kind of fits today's time, and I just enjoy it so much, right? And I think some of you guys like to be here because I'm me. I'm just myself. Just a girl who grew up in, a woman, I should say, because I'm old enough now. But I'm just a girl who grew up in East Tennessee, who now lives in Memphis, and being myself, right? And so with this particular project, I like to sort of showcase those aspects of myself. Now, before I got into it, it was hella nerve-wracking. Just being honest, right? I was super scared. I was creating all kinds of scenarios within my mind of how wrong it could go. But once you are aware that you are doing that, right? Once you sort of are like, and you have to pay attention to the way you think to be able to catch it. But once you catch it, then it's easy to say, okay, why am I feeling like this? Right? What do I think is going to happen? Why do I think it's going to happen? If it happens, then what? Right? And then flip it and say, okay, but what's the best case scenario that can come out of it? Now, I started streaming June 30th. I think I was on camera a few times prior to that. But it took me years. I started this channel in 2013. It took me years to do a voiceover, right? Because I was afraid. It took me even longer to do my very first on-camera video was 2016. I had won an art contest and I did like an art haul. It's still on this channel. It was the very first time I was ever like speaking to the camera and on camera. I was super nervous. It took me forever to do just a video where I sat down and spoke to the camera about whatever it is I was talking about. So it took a long time, but once I sort of got over that fear, and I found that the things that I was afraid was going to happen didn't happen. I feel like I attracted you guys who are awesome, all in the chat, right? Love having you here. It's 7 people watching. I'm so grateful to have all 7 of y'all watching. Even if it's just us, to me that's success. To me, that was the best case scenario. And again, the things that I was thinking would happen never did happen. Thank goodness, but it never did happen. And then 2, because again, I'm very comfortable in being myself. I'm very comfortable with the art that I'm creating. I'm very happy with it and excited to show you guys the process of it. You know, you just attract. Your vibe is going to attract the tribe, right? So be uniquely yourself in whatever it is that you're creating. Tell your own story. Be, again, authentic in what it is that you're telling. Everybody's not going to have the same struggle. Everybody's not going to have the same victories. Everyone's not going to have the same journey and walk and all of that. But what is your story? Where are you from, right? What did you do when you was growing up? What are some of the things that you're afraid of? Talk about that, right? Because chances are you're going to meet people with the exact same fears. So it is auto saving, and as it auto saves, let me show y'all what this project look like. Now I do need to update this presentation. I hadn't done it yet. I got so many things going on in life and so many side missions and art that I'm creating and videos I'm creating and all kinds of stuff. But one of these days I'll update this with more of the more recent cards. But just in case you're new here, you have not seen this. These are some of the cards from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, again, I started this project because I was not finding what I wanted in the market, and I was also not happy with the art that I was creating, or not fulfilled, I should say, with the art that I was creating. So I decided to create it myself. I didn't see it taking as long, but I'm glad that it has been, because it's taught me a lot about myself. It has made me confront a lot of my fears. I'm able to put so much of me in these cards, and even though this is something I'm putting out to the world for you guys to see yourselves in, I think, again, speaking just authentically from my own experience, is making this such a wonderful project to work on. Right now, it took me again 6 years. A lot of that was because I was working off and on, but it wasn't until I sort of set aside time to say, okay, we got to get this done. Right, you need to work on your cards. So I set aside Sundays to work on it. Some Sundays I get a whole lot done. Some Sundays I don't. But just that small progress, I think, is going to make a huge impact. Playing the long game here. That's how life has to go. You have to play the long game. Again, sometimes we can kind of get impatient with things in the way life has turned out for us and for our individual stories. And sometimes we can compare ourselves to other people. I was comparing myself to other artists, especially early on. Other artists who were putting out decks and all of that. You go through all of that, right? But at a certain point, and I think that's because of how long this has taken me. At a certain point, I got to a point where it was like, okay, this is your journey, right? You cannot keep up with the next artist. You cannot keep up with how fast things are being put out by other people. They have their own journeys. They may have a team. They may be working with publishers. They may have someone who is, sort of directing them in what to do. You don't know what people's stories are. I know one guy was like, he spent 12 hours a day for like a month or so doing his. I ain't got 12 hours a day to work on a Cosmic Gateway Tarot. I got Sundays, right? So you start to learn, or I started to sort of learn to be patient with myself, to be patient with my journey. As I'm saying that, I have the next set of cards. I have no idea what they're going to be. I have no idea. But I am using this particular card to take my time so that I can kind of think about it and be creative as creative as I can, sort of figure out my next steps. But I'm also working on other things because I'm kind of feeding that impatience a little bit, right? Not so much to say I'm going to give up on the Cosmic Gateway Tarot because I don't know what I'm going to do next. But okay, while I'm working on the Four of Wands, let me work on some other things just so I can kind of look at other things to help inspire what's going on over at the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So there are 42, I think, cards done for this deck. They're going to be slightly bigger than your average tarot deck, and I did that because I have a deck that's bigger and I liked it. So I just kind of used that size as my go-to. Now in the event, and I didn't know this ahead of time, but I'm glad that I did it this way, in the event that I am not able to print at that bigger size, they are actually designed in a way where they can be printed at a smaller size, so it kind of works out in that way. I do try to put the majority of my information within a set of borders. I'm gonna see if I can show you guys what that looks like. There is a faint set of lines, and you may not be able to see it. I'm going to zoom all the way in to see if you can see it. When I set up my files for my cards, there are a faint set of lines, right? Some of these lines, these outer two, let me see. I'm going to see if I can highlight it for you. These outer two lines, there's one here. There's one there. There's one here. And then over here, there's one here, right? And there, I'm talking about this really, really faint gray line, right? Anything on this side of the line is going to be cut off. So when you're designing for print, whether you're doing posters, whether you're doing book covers, right? Flyers, anything like that. Anytime you're designing or illustrating something that is going to be printed, you want to create a bleed. Now there's plenty of information within these within these two lines. Lots of information. But you do that so that when they cut the cards to size, if they cut too far over to the right hand side or the left hand side, to cut too far off the top or off the bottom, there's still information there, so you're good to go. This other line represents the border of my actual tarot deck, right? So again, I'll show you this. So this is the High Priestess print. Now posters are available on my shop, so if you like these, then these are there, right? But this outside line, this is the border for the cards. Now if you buy this print as a canvas print, it won't have the outside border, but for the posters it has the name, the number, and of course this outside border. This line here, right, represents that border. That line is actually designed to be the actual size of a tarot card. So everything that's within that card, if I have to cut off all the excess, if I have to make these cards narrower and shorter than I would like, then those that border kind of lets me know exactly what information is in there, and we don't lose a whole lot at all, right? All right, so that's how that goes into planning those cards. Initially, I don't think I knew, I don't think I paid any attention. I don't think I knew at the beginning when I was sort of planning out the little bit I was planning when I started this project and was sort of thinking about what sizes to make the cards. I didn't realize at the time that there was a standard size. It sounds kind of silly now that I know better, but I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to begin a tarot deck project. I learned shortly thereafter that of course there was, but again, I had a slightly larger deck. So the deck that I have that I love the size of is Crow Tarot, and I don't know if they still print this at this larger size, but I love the size of Crow Tarot. It's bigger, it's smaller than an Oracle, but it's bigger than a normal tarot deck. I was like, you know what, I like this, so that's what I'm gonna go with. When I went to sort of meet or speak with manufacturers, they let me know that, okay, that's cool, you can get it this way. But if you do, there's going to be an additional charge. I said, okay, cool. This is a dream project. I want it to be exactly how I want it to be, right? Whatever I have to pay to get it to that, that's what I'll do. Now, if subsequent decks that come out or print runs of this project come out, whether or not they'll be that larger size, I don't know. We'll see. It'll kind of depend. But for now, that's sort of the size that I'm sticking with. I like it. It shuffles really nicely. I think the key with it being a good playing or like a good reading experience is making sure that I don't make the cards too thick. But other than that, that's sort of the size that we're going with. Now, this deck is also going to have a companion book, which is going to be a larger book. I think I have that set for just standard 8.5 by 5.5, but it's going to come with a little white book that comes with most tarot decks. They come with a little guidebook. It'll have that as well. The companion book is going to be for people who are interested in sort of a deep dive. Now, with that, I've written like the first 3 chapters, which I'm super proud of. I'm glad that I did it because I did that years ago. Years ago. I remember sometimes as creatives, I'll say this. Sometimes me as a creative, I tend to have a whole bunch of ideas. And sometimes I'll stop a thing just to start a new thing. And then I'll go back to that old thing and then I come back to the other thing later. So it just be a bunch of stuff going on. But in this case, something told me to go ahead and just write. Right? And I did. I wrote those chapters. And I'm so happy that I did because at that time I was more actively reading. So a lot of that information was very fresh on my mind, and it was something that I wanted to get off my chest, right? Get off my mind. I'm really, really glad I did that. I'm also really glad I wrote a outline for that book because I have not done that in so long, reading tarot, and so long that it's not super fresh, right? So I did that, got all that good information in. So glad I did. And from there, the only thing that I have left for that book is just the pages and the information for each individual card. And I think I have a chapter that I would like to include, or just sort of a section in that book for what my intention was for this deck and how you can use it. Of course, you're not limited to the way that I suggest. You use it however you would like. And so that is going to be a part of this project as well. Now, whether or not I produce that and put it out at the same time as the deck, I have no idea yet. Right? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I have absolutely no idea. But in the meantime, that is just sort of where we are. Now, I also have some other things brewing in connection with that. And so once I have all of that set up and ready to go, I'll share that with you as well. So yeah, as a creative, I have a lot of things. Got a lot, sometimes too many things going on, but it's like that. I don't know if you've ever seen like the memes of people who have like ideas for paintings, like they're working on a painting and then an idea comes up and so they stop the one that they were working on to start something new. That's a very real thing, right? That's very much something that I experience. However, I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten a handle on it so that it's not so much me never getting anything done, but it is me starting it and then coming back to it. So a lot of these projects that I've worked on or am working on is stuff that I've been sort of tinkering with over years, right? Been happening over years. And so being able to sort of make the time and just finding the time and the inspiration to come back to it, I feel like it's a blessing. I'm really happy to be able to do that. So what I've done is just now is just sort of added some shadow in. Again, I'm not necessarily focused on too much on details. I am going to brush in his eyebrows because I have his hair and his wife's hair is blue. Why? No rhyme or reason. It just looked good on the page, so that's what I went with. So I'm just going to brush in his eyebrows a bit. And I don't like that so much, maybe because this one is a little bit further. And I'll make adjustments to this as I go. I'm not necessarily reaching for the perfect picture just yet, the perfect face or anything like that just yet. I'm just putting in light and shadow, right? So under his nose is a bit of a shadow. I'm going to darken that just a bit so that I can emphasize his nostrils like so, right? And then if I turn off the sketch, it'll give you an idea of what we've done so far. If we can start to see some of the planes of the face show up, then that means I'm doing what I need to do, right? Again, I'm not necessarily looking for this to look exactly like it's completed just yet. It's going to take time. It's going to take layers of work and sort of layers of pixels to get it to where I would like it to be. But just putting in these lights and shadows is going to help me out in the long run. And then I can add whatever information I need to add from here later. So again, if you like a little more chill live stream, which is usually when I get the most work done is on Wednesdays. If you like something like that where we just kind of co-work together and I'm there working and you're there working or studying or living your life and just enjoying the music, join me on Wednesdays for Paint With Me Live. Again, that's probably my favorite stream. I'm usually super duper active in the chat. So for you guys who come by and chat with me, I love having you guys there. Love learning about your life and what it is that you have going on. That just kind of juices me up a little bit, right? So I love to have you there. Oh, you know what? I'm on the wrong layer. Love to have you there if that's your thing. Otherwise, yeah, we'll be here every Sunday from 3:30 until I run out of stuff to talk about. I wonder, have you guys, for some of you guys who are watching, have you guys considered live streaming? I would love to see you guys stream. If you do, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a project or something like that you would like me to check out, I would love to learn about it, right? I know that some of you guys are authors. I know that some of you guys are students. I know that some of you guys are artists and all of the things. Whatever you have going on, be sure to share that with me. Right. I like that we are able to sort of build a little bit of a community here. Just a few of us. Right. And then as it grows and things like that, of course, I'm going to remember you. Right. Of course, we'll be able to sort of walk and network sideways. I remember I was I don't remember if it was a class. I remember hearing a teacher speak to this, right? Sometimes we like to network up, meaning that we like to be able to find people who are at a station in life where we would like to be, and we try to network with those people. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of times that is the best way to go. But sometimes it's best to sort of network to the side, right? So you're networking with people who are on their way up to where you're trying to get to, so that you guys can, or so that we all can get to the place that we want to be. So when you hear people say you want to be around people who are either where you want to be or going where you want to go, that's sort of the idea that networking to the side is, right? Sometimes we don't have access to the people who are sort of made it to wherever we're trying to go. And sometimes those people don't necessarily have the time or the will to sort of share certain things. And that's perfectly their prerogative, right? But sometimes you can figure things out together as a group collectively with people who are on their way to wherever it is that you want to go. Because I think we're all just trying to figure it out. I think for some people, it was a matter of timing, and the timing hit, and they were able to sort of do whatever it was and succeed in their field a lot faster than some others were. But say all that to encourage you to share your work with me. I don't mind. I would love to see it. You guys really inspire me more than anything. For those of you who email me from time to time to share me your work, for those of you who DM me to show me what you have going on in your life. I love that. For those of you who show up in the chat and in the comments and you're sharing with me the stuff that you got going on, to me, that's what I would love to experience more of. So don't be a stranger. I ain't gonna bite you. I ain't gonna let nobody over here bite you. Right? So what am I doing? I am adding highlights to the top of his head because my mannequin has highlights at the top of his. I don't know that I like this color so much. I'm gonna zoom out to see what it looks like in the grander scheme of things. I might change this. I have it on a separate layer, which helps me out a whole lot. So if I wanted to change the color, it shouldn't be, theoretically, it shouldn't be very difficult for me to do. So let's see. Now, most of this picture is pretty green, right? And he's like a nice mocha color. We have pinks. We have his blue. I just don't like the lightness of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer and I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. To me, that's all art is, right? Sometimes I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just want to try and see if what I do will work. I'm going to go over to hue, saturation, and luminosity. This gives me the opportunity to change sort of the hue. See, I like that. That's good. I don't know if that's strange or not that he has turquoise hair. I guess it don't matter. But I can kind of cycle through some of these colors and see if there's anything that fits a little bit better than that particular blue. Or maybe we can go with that blue and make it just a bit darker. I don't know. Take the luminosity down some. Let me see. I don't know. There's no right or wrong way. We're just gonna go with what looks best or what we like the best. I like that red. Come on, red. Do we want him ginger? I don't know. I think for now I'm gonna go back to 0 because that's going to be my starting point. And maybe we'll just darken this up a little bit like so. Like that. And if I want to change it again, I have this on a separate layer. So I can go back and change it, or I can go back to the original lighter blue. But I think I like that just a bit better. Again, art for me is all about experimentation. Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you could push a thing and you discover something that you didn't know you could do. So that's kind of how that works, right? All right, so I'm going to tinker a little bit on his face. Yeah, so I hope you guys are I hope you guys had a great week this week. I've had a pretty great week. This last weekend, I had an opportunity to visit my family. So that was really, really nice. I had not seen them in so long. So it was really, really great to catch up with my family and see some of my nieces and nephews and just check out how big they've gotten. It's always a trip to me because I'm the oldest sibling, right? So seeing my younger siblings as parents, it's just a trip, man. I'll be so proud of them. I'll be so proud and so proud of my nieces and nephews and things like that. And all they have going on in their lives and how well they're growing and growing up. It just makes my heart smile. It really does. So yeah, if you're into, not to switch back, but I will just a bit. If you are into creating whatever your thing is, whether you sew, like I saw one of my classmates who sews, and she does such wonderful, like beautiful designs. Like, go ahead, girl. I love to see it. If you sew, if you write, whatever you do, I would love to know about it. I would love to support you in it as best I can. I am just a huge proponent in just being yourself and leaning into the stuff that you love to do. No matter who else around you loves it or doesn't, right? I love to know that you are being authentically yourself. Again, we talked about that a little bit earlier. I think that's going to be the key to a lot of people's success moving forward. It's just being yourself, right? Just telling your own story. Just sort of being comfortable and confident in whoever it is that you are, right? No matter sort of what stage, no matter what age you are in your life. And I keep saying this because I know there's somebody out there like, I don't want to start nothing because I'm X number years old. I do not care how old you are, right? Do something that you like, because I feel like that's a great way to balance. There's always going to be stuff to do. There's always going to be a responsibility. There's always going to be someone to take care of, in your life. But you can, I'm drawing on the wrong doggone layer. You have to sort of make sure your cup is full before you can lean into the next person or feed into the next person or, show up for the next person. So I want you to find something that you like to do. Maybe you don't know what you like, right? Try different stuff. I like to hike. I love being outside, which is ironic because when I was a kid, I hated it. I couldn't stand being outside. I was more akin to, like, I used to read a lot. So I used to read and draw. If I wasn't drawing, I was reading. If I wasn't reading, I was drawing. I was like teaching myself how to play piano or like, different creating bowls and stuff like that. My great aunt taught us how to do that, and, cooking and all those, anything crafty and creative. That was sort of my thing. But as I've gotten older, I really love to hike, right? So that's something that I love to do. Again, I mentioned earlier, I love musical instruments. I cannot play many. I can't play none of them, like with any proficiency. But I just love instruments, right? For instance, I got a band. I got a whole banjo. I got a banjo I've been trying to figure out how to play. I really want to learn how to play the bass. But, you just try different things. There's nothing wrong with trying different things, especially as an adult. Because as kids, sometimes we're not able to because our families may not be able to afford to. But as an adult, you got adult money, right? You could buy toys and stuff like that. Feed that inner child of yours. You can buy the toys that you wish you had when you were younger and couldn't because for whatever reason you just couldn't have them. So do that, but find the things that you enjoy doing and be brave enough to just enjoy it, right? No matter what the internet is telling you, no matter what the podcast bros are saying, right? No matter what the people around you are saying, no matter how weird you may look or appear to look with the people around you, just sort of try your hand at different things to find what it is that you like. Because chances are you're going to attract people who like the same things. And before you know it, you got your own little community. And y'all are rocking out on the banjo, right? Or creating a Minnesota sound like Leon Knights has with his song, Yes, I Do. Whatever your thing is, just be brave enough to do it. Sometimes we get in our own head. Sometimes, again, we're afraid of being seen by the people who are around us, especially I feel like for people who have, maybe you're in the same hometown you grew up in and you're used to seeing certain people live a certain kind of life and you don't know anything other than the life that you see around you. But on the internet, on our phones, we see all these people doing all these cool things and we're thinking, oh man, I wish I could, but right? I wish I could, but these people gonna laugh at me. I wish I could, but I don't want to hear what this person say or whatever the case is. You kind of have to quiet all of that noise and just kind of take a chance. Now, is it always going to work out? It may not. It may, but it may not as well. But you got to be brave enough to sort of move forward through it, right? Learn something from it. Just try something new. Just find your thing. Find your thing. And no matter where you're working at, whether you're working in a warehouse, where you're working in a school, wherever you're working at, just have that one thing that you love, or if it's multiple things, have those things that you love to do and make time to sort of do those things, right? So I have not messed with my banjo in a long time. It's been on my mind to do. I might go pick it up and play with it a little bit. Why a banjo? I don't know. I just wanted one. And I got one for a Christmas present. And I love my banjo, right? I got a kalimba, this little thing here. Let me show you. On my desk. I love musical instruments. So I got this one here. I tinker with it every now and again. I sit here and play on it. My son has a guitar. I just love instruments. That's something I like. Right? Can't play none of them, but I like them. And every now and again, I pull up a YouTube video and see if I can pick out a song. Right? So that's just the thing. You just have to find your thing. You have to find your sort of outlet. You have to find your passion. You have to find something that you actually genuinely love to do. Because when things get very difficult in life, and of course the world, if you're watching the news or on social media or anything, the shit looks like it's going to hell in a handbasket, right? There's stuff happening all around us. So with all of that, with all the bills, with the kids, with the responsibilities, with all of the things that we have to sort of deal with and make sure it's okay and take responsibility for. Sometimes you got to do something that speaks to that 10-year-old version of you, right? I got roller skates, baby, all kinds of stuff, right? That 10-year-old version of you that might have wanted to learn how to skateboard, right? But now you 40 and you like, I don't think I should get on that skateboard, right? Or maybe you was the little girl who's making doll clothes and you got to be, in your 30s and you like, you know what? I used to love doing that, but now I gotta work and I don't have time to learn how to sew. I don't have time to do this. Man, make time to go and sew and make more doll clothes. It's a lady that I came across. She's going through perimenopause. I say that because it's important, right? She's going through perimenopause, and one of her ways of coping with that is that she makes doll houses. And this lady is so entertaining. She's just making her own doll houses, and she playing with dolls, and she got the little voice thing, and she's just being herself, and she's enjoying the thing that she want to do. I don't know how old this lady is, but she enjoying it, right? Kind of have to find your thing. Find your thing, lean into it, don't be afraid. One of the things I absolutely love when I do comic book conventions is I feel like that's like the adult Toys R Us, right? You find, especially in my lane, because I would do all kinds of nostalgia work. I would have so many people come to my table and see things that they grew up with that they have not seen anyone create, and you would literally legit see the child in them like flash on their faces, and it was so fulfilling, right? Because they're, for a moment, they get to remember what it was to be a kid, what it was to not have so many responsibilities, what it was to be free in that sense, right? You gotta do that. I don't know, I've heard some people like downplay millennials because we spend a lot of money on like Funko Pops and Ninja Turtle t-shirts and all this stuff we love, right? That's keeping us going, that's keeping us youthful, that's keeping us vibrant. That's kind of how it has to go. Now if you want to push that further and you want to learn other things that maybe can change the trajectory of your life and your career, do that as well, right? Let's say, for instance, you wanted to write a book when you was 12 and somebody told you couldn't write, but you seeing other people write. Why you can't write, right? Write your book, sew your dress, sing your song, write your songs, learn your musical instruments, whatever it is that you like to do. All right, Draw Sketchbook says, do we have a favorite convention? Yes. Yes, draw sketchbook, I do. Okay, so when I do conventions, I know, granted, I've never been to any of the huge conventions. So my goal one day is to go to New York Comic Con and the regular Comic Con in San Diego, right? I love to do, and Dragon Con. Want to do those three. Never been. But here in Memphis, there's one called the Memphis Comic Expo. That is my absolute favorite in the whole wide world. It is one of the most down to earth conventions I've ever gone to. That was the very first one that I ever worked back in 2014. I set up pictures, and I didn't have no huge setup or fancy setup or anything like that. There weren't very many women artists. There definitely weren't very many black women artists there. And so I was one of one for the most part for those first couple years. And so I had like my Bob Marley artwork. I had Batman, just little stuff. And then at first I did it thinking that I would create stuff that I thought would sell. And then I started to do things I actually liked. So I'm a huge fan of Big Trouble in Little China. So I would do art for that. I would do, Mad Max Fury Road. I did some art for that. So different ones, but the Memphis Comic Expo is by far my favorite. There used to be one that I did in Little Rock called River City Expo, and they stopped it. That and Memphis Comic Expo to me had the same vibe, where it was mostly people in there at the time. I think 2014, so I had to be in 28 or so when I started conventions. It was mostly folks that grew up in the 90s, right? They would have their kids and stuff there, but it was mostly folks that grew up in the 90s, 80s and 90s, and that's sort of the vibe, right? And what I just enjoyed was people watching. I would watch the people, and I would have so many people stop by the table because they were seeing aspects of their childhood, and I would just see them light up, whether they bought anything or not. That in and of itself was just so much fun to do. That's my favorite. Now, of course, I want to go to those big three. There was Dragon Con, New York Comic Con, and I want to go to San Diego Comic Con. There's one in Houston that I was going to do a few years ago. That one was called Comic Palooza. From my understanding, just sort of watching videos and stuff like that, it's very near the same vibe. I just have not had an opportunity to go just yet. The year that I got approved to vend there, I was supposed to stay with some family and they changed their mind. So they kind of put me in a very difficult situation. So I just decided not to do it. But one of these days I would love to vend there. But if you guys are artists, right, and you are looking for a way to just put yourself out there, I would recommend doing a comic book convention, because nowadays it's a little bit different because a lot of people are doing them. But when I started, it was one of the most fun things I've ever done, right? So this year is the actual first year from 2014 to this year is 2025. This year is the first year I haven't done one, right? The first year I hadn't done Memphis Comic Expo or any of them. This is the first year, no cons for me. But I miss it. I miss it so much. And it's very interesting. Again, you sort of learn how to be confident about what you do, right? That was one of the places I learned how to do that. Of course, I was selling art before then, because I talked once before about having a small business where I would do like handmade shampoos and things like that. While I was doing that, I was always have like artwork also for sale. But that's one of the places I sort of learned to, I don't know, just enjoy selling art, be very confident about the art that I was creating, and also just sort of picking up cues and not taking things so personally. So again, we talked a little bit earlier about sometimes people will say, well, yeah, I'm going to buy this thing right from you, or I'm going to hire you for this, and then it never happens, right? Doing those kinds of conventions kind of taught me how not to take certain like stuff like that personally. It just is what it is. But one of the most awesome things that has happened to me doing that is that I've had this happen maybe 2 or 3 times. I've had people come to the conventions and they'll be like, we came just to see you. And I'm like, what? Right? Not me. Y'all came here for me. So that's always a trip. I don't know how to take that. Right? Of course, it's wonderful, but it's like, oh my goodness, did you really? Right? And so just sort of having people come by, especially if you're doing local conventions, what you'll do is you'll begin to grow an audience within your space. And that helps because the internet is such a wild place, right? Where it used to be very easy for us to grow on Instagram or on TikTok or wherever you are trying to grow online. But if you can create a sort of an audience base in your locale, that makes a huge difference and kind of offsets the lack of engagement that we might have on the internet. So yeah, we'll have people come by like, yeah, I came to see you, or what you got new this year. And I'm like, oh my goodness, y'all doing too much. right? It's so humbling. But I appreciate it so much. So if you guys are into doing that or looking to sort of find ways to sell your artwork, I would highly recommend comic book conventions. And I will say, just be aware of your audience, right? You don't necessarily have to have comic art, but you don't necessarily want to go so heavily into your own. It's a really interesting dynamic, because a lot of people are not, or sort of anti fan art, right? But at the same time, if you're in a space where people are quite literally looking for fan art, that's sort of one of those places where I have sold lots, right? I've sold lots of fan art. So that's something you want to sort of balance out between your fan art and your original art. It is hit and miss. I would not look at a comic book convention if you guys are considering vending at them. It is not, you're not going to get rich, right? It's not one of the places, because there's so much competition. But it is a place, again, for you to connect to people who live within that space, right? To sort of build an audience around yourself in real life, right? Because real life, of course, is a lot different from the things that we see online, and it's become increasingly more challenging to sort of build online. So comic book conventions are it. If you could do small markets, that would be great. For someone like myself, because I do digital art, the issue that I ran into, I want to say this year, just sort of applying for, I don't want to know if it was this year or last year. One of the things that I was running into is the fact that people are, of course, selling AI art. I don't think that art markets is the space for that, but people are doing it. And the problem is that the folks who are sort of selecting artists for their markets aren't necessarily, they can't tell the difference between, a lot of times, between AR and actual digital art, right? And so that's sort of been a battle that I've had to face. So of course, being able to do these live streams and show you guys the process is helping me in that favor. And that's why I say, for artists that are navigating the space where people are sort of looking at digital art specifically as AI art, is sort of having a little bit of confusion between the two, showing your process is going to be extremely helpful. Even if you do traditional work, even if you're doing acrylic paintings and watercolor paintings or whatever the case is, being able to show that you're actually creating this work is going to take you a long way. But yeah, Memphis Comic Expo, that's my favorite one. The guy that runs it name his Donnie, so we call it Donnie Con. But I love that particular comic book convention, because again, that's one of the spaces where I can feel it's just very comfortable. It's such a cool, relaxed vibe. There's no real pressure. You have your cosplayers, you have your video game nerds, you got anime nerds, you just a whole community of people who are there to have a good time. So it's really, really relaxed. Trying to think, the one that there's a couple that I wouldn't do again, and that's locally would not do again, and have not done them again, because the vibe is so very different, right? And those are conventions that have been around for a lot longer than Memphis Comic Expo, and so there's a sort of air about them that I don't enjoy. So I've had good and bad experiences, but in terms of like my favorite, Memphis Comic Expo is the one. I think you can find them on Instagram. I believe Memphis Comic Expo, or you'll see MCX. Hands down my favorite. I would love to do one again. I want to do Dragon Con one year. I remember talking to a guy, and you know what? I'm the type of person, you tell me I can't do something, don't do that. Don't tell me I can't do something. So there's an artist that was pretty popular here in Memphis. And he'd been around for a long time. He's no longer living. And I remember talking to him, and I can't remember why I knew his face. I still don't know. I don't know if he was a professor at, in college or what it was. But anyhow, I got to talking about Dragon Con. Now, at that time, I was doing relatively well here in Memphis. And of course, I was traveling to different conventions. And I was selling great, right? Because again, I had my pocket. I did the nostalgia artwork. I did the stuff that I liked and grew up with. So I went to him and I was like, yeah, I've been thinking about wanting to do Dragon Con. And he was one of them, well, it's expensive. And I'm like, what you mean? Are you trying to tell me I can't afford it? Right? What are you trying to say? And he would just had this real nasty attitude about it. Or at least that's how I interpreted it. And I was like, okay, he watch. And he's not living, so I can't prove to him that one of these days I'm going to be there. But don't tell me what I can't do. I'm one of them. Don't do that. But yeah, so Dragon Con, it is expensive, right? It's one of those things. I think the booth tables are like $1,500, whereas here in like the smaller conventions, you usually will pay maybe $175. I think the most I paid for a table was maybe $350, maybe. Usually that's sort of the price range. The larger the convention, of course, the more it'll cost to vend at those and set up for your artist alley booths and all of that. But you want to do that, keeping in mind that a lot of the times you're not gonna, you just, sometimes you may break even and sometimes you won't. I'll say that. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. Now the reason that I didn't do conventions this year is, of course, I'm watching things outside of the art world, right? So I'm sort of watching how the prices of things are going up. I'm watching how people are sort of speaking about money just in the world, specifically on social media, because that's how we connect to the world. And in my mind, and this has happened for the last couple of years, I just sort of watched people have a very difficult time with having extra money to spend. So to me, it just, based on the way it went last year, in terms of making a profit and sort of breaking even, it didn't make sense to vend this year, just because I knew a lot of people weren't spending the way that they used to. So I decided to focus again on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. But if you're wanting to, I would absolutely encourage doing a convention, encourage doing a market. Just don't go into it again looking to get rich. Right now, when you are doing an artist alley, just from my observing and having done them for the last 9 years, because I didn't do it this year, but it was 9 years, from 2014 2024. I guess that's 10 years. So from those 10 years, there are a couple of things that I find sell extremely well, no matter what it is, no matter how the market is going. If you have those little keychains or just little trinkets and things like that you can price very low, maybe no more than like $10 or so, those do exceptionally well. In terms of print sizes, usually the print size that you'll find at a comic book convention is 11 by 17. So this is this size. This is an 11 by 17. Right? If you have your artwork, I used to not have the backer board, so this has a cardboard backer so it doesn't get bent. But if you do present your artwork, I would encourage having them in some plastic. I've seen people who do not have it in plastic, and that's their prerogative. But just sort of to, of course, create value, but also just to give the person something sturdy to take their work home in so it doesn't get beat up. You can get these cardboard inserts. I get them from Huion. The little plastic sleeves, they sell them in Hobby Lobby, but I actually order mine off eBay. I have a seller that I've been working with for years that sells those. So when you're pricing your work for a convention, you don't want to think, so there's a couple of different types of markets, right? So you'll typically have like an art specific art show. So here in Memphis, we have the River City Arts, I think it's called, or I think it is River City Arts. That's where you have like your $1,000 paintings and like your investment pieces, and they're really nice art booths, and you have these huge paintings and things like that. That's the space where you'll see things relatively expensive in terms of how they're priced, because you're seeing a lot of original work, right? With a convention, most of what you'll be selling is going to be a print. Now, I offer things that range from, I think the cheapest thing I sell is like $2. I do little buttons for $2. I do those 3 for $5. On up, I think the most expensive thing I sell are $50. And those are original, like very small original paintings, right? So you want to kind of have a large range of items in terms of pricing so that you can kind of catch everybody. I like to have things where people can touch them. That's something I got from my husband. I remember our very first convention, when I was selling shampoos and stuff, he was like, have it so people can touch it, because people will often buy the stuff that they can touch. If they can touch it and pick it up and feel it, they're more likely to buy it. That's a trade secret. I've never heard nobody else talk about this, but have it where they can actually touch it. So because I have so much art and have been doing this for so long, I tend to display my prints in these bins so people can flip through them. They can touch them. Used to be a time I would just set them out on the table, right? They could pick them up. Oh, hey, look, it's such and such a so-and-so. This is Show Enough or Hellboy or whoever it was I was selling. And so they can actually pick it up and put it in their hands. If someone can touch it, they're more likely to buy it. Just a little buyer psychology, right? You do want to again have a range of pricing. So yeah, I would do the originals. Those would of course be my bigger ticket items. I used to do grab bags, man. I used to do all kinds of stuff. And so, but one of the things again that I think sells very well, they're like this size of this earring. They would be like little character keychains and pins and things like that about that size. Stickers do extremely well. Postcards do extremely well. But the more you do that, the more you'll kind of see trends and what people buy. I remember I was at one and I was like, again, sometimes you'll make booth rent, sometimes you'll exceed booth rent, sometimes you won't make booth rent at all. But I remember being at a convention and I was sitting next to a girl who had like a buku keychains about this big, and she had Pokemon and Avatar, all just whatever was trending at the time. She had little small keychains for 'em. Man, that girl was selling. I don't like to watch her count people's pockets, but she was kicking everybody's butt because she had something that was very easily accessible, small, affordable that people could buy. So in this round where we're trying to pivot and we're going to these markets, just kind of keep in mind that people aren't spending the way that they used to. So you want to have items that are not expensive for you to produce. That's number one, right? So you don't want to spend a butt ton of money producing these things. You want to be able to create something that's easy for you to produce, but also economic for your customer. So I learned a lot, man, at those comic book conventions. And a lot of that came from, again, having the previous business of selling the shampoos and the natural hair care products and things like that when I was in my early 20s. So all of those lessons sort of carried over into conventions. Now, as I produced the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, that'll, be a whole different audience, right? So I remembered having this artwork at a spiritual convention. And it was set up. This is very similar to the way I would do a convention, like a comic book convention, but this was just spiritual convention specifically. So this was like the ideal client. Draw Sketchbook says, thanks for the Artist Alley tips. No problem. Child, I have tips for days when it comes from to Artist Alley. We had one where I had, it was in Jackson, Tennessee, which is about an hour from Memphis. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this one because it's not far. So if we need to leave, we just come on home. Man, we stayed there and it was so unprofitable that we just left. I was like, it's not even a reason for me to be here. But I got stories for days when it comes to them conventions. But anyhow, I had did one where it was a spiritual convention similar to the Artist Alley, but you have some people who have candles and things like that. You have some people doing readings. I had artwork, and that was because of the audience and the type of art that I had made the most money I ever made at a single event, right? So when you're doing these conventions, whether it is just a market and your like festival season comes up and you do like just a regular market where people sell different wares, whether you're doing a comic book convention, you want to just be very aware of your audience, right? So I wouldn't have Mike Tyson posters at the spiritual convention because it just doesn't make sense to the audience. I have been able to sort of sell the tarot images, certain ones, just because of the longevity that I've had at certain conventions. So, it kind of crosses over. People are used to seeing my artwork, and so they're willing to buy certain things that I produce. But of course, because it is a comic book convention, they're looking for the nostalgia art that they're used to seeing me produce. So just be very aware when you're doing those markets and things like that. It's okay. I know there's a lot of fuss on the internet about fan art and all of that, but there are avenues in which that's what you should have, right? So if you go into these comic book conventions, you want to have some fan art things. You can mix and mingle that with your original artwork. I feel like that is a safe space for that. Right. Now, of course, with fan art, there are some legalities to it. So you just want to be careful with it. I don't do like Disney or anything like that when it comes to fan art. That's a company I try to steer very clear away from when it comes to fan art because they're will notoriously sue you. Right. But for most small artists, for most people who are doing these conventions, it's not really a big deal. So that is something to do. Now, I have seen people at the larger conventions at San Diego Comic-Con. There's an artist by the name of Bobby Chu who does schoolism. He has a whole platform where he teaches, has different people teach different artistic skills. And I think they have like lifetime access where you can enroll in classes where you're having like one-on-one access to professors and things like that. But anyhow, he tells the story of how he did his first Comic-Con and in San Diego, and he had all original work. And so he was able to actually land contracts. I think did he win I don't know if he won an Oscar, was up for an Oscar or something like that. He won some big award where he was able to sort of land jobs based on his original work. So you just kind of have to play it by ear, do a little bit of research when you're looking at these conventions. But I would highly recommend starting locally, right? Start locally, see if it's something that you enjoy, see if it's something that that you can build an audience from, and then branch out. So I started here in Memphis. We did, of course, and for me, it's been no more than about 5 hours out from where I live. So I've done Little Rock, we've done Memphis. We did the spiritual thing in Atlanta. We did Knoxville. I would love to do one in my hometown in Chattanooga one year. So we just kind of keep it local, and then because of course you have to take into consideration travel expenses and all of that. So there's expenses. You have your booth rent, right? You have however much it's going to cost you to produce your artwork. You have travel expenses. Did I say that already? So if you're traveling, are you flying? Are you driving? Are you renting a car? Do you need a hotel? So you need somewhere to stay. You got to eat. So all of that comes into how much you charge for things, but how much you're looking to make. For me, if I break even, that's a win. That's a win, right? If I can break even, there have been again times where I have exceeded breaking even, and there have been times where I've just barely scratched the surface. So again, don't go into conventions looking to get rich because I know a lot of people go in and think they're going to make a ton of money. You may not. Just go in with the idea that I am now reaching people who can connect to me on a very one-on-one basis and can buy art from me that they enjoy, and they can learn more about me. I can learn more about them, and I can sort of make those connections. Very much like Bobby Chu was able to land those contracts for whatever movie. I can't remember what it was, but he did some kind of movie, a couple of them, where him and his partner were able to work on movies because they were able to make those connections at comic book conventions. So I love comic book conventions. So next year we'll see. Hopefully I'll be able to get back into those, and we'll kind of see how it goes. But if not, then we'll keep on trucking, right? So if you're an artist, and even if you're a writer, here's another thing: very untapped market. If you're a writer, that's a great place to be. Again, don't go into it looking to be famous right out the gate. Just look at it as an opportunity to connect to people who might like the things that you write. So not only are there comic book conventions, not only are there artist markets like River City Arts here in Memphis, and other artists type of Art Basel, that kind of thing. Not only are those kinds of events, but there are also book festivals. I've just found out about that like last year, and I don't know why it didn't dawn on me. There are also festivals for writers, right? So in those, you can have a selection of your books. If you're a writer, you can have some of your books printed off, and you can go and actually network with actual publishers, right? Or people who buy for stores, and people who buy for libraries, and people who buy for college libraries, things like that. So always look at markets as sort of a marketing space, rather than an income type of space. Now, of course, again, the goal is always to at least break even. And of course, again, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But if you go into it with a thought that I'm just doing this to connect to the people, and of course, we want to sell things and things like that. We want to have our things priced competitively. So if people see something that they like and they only buy one item, they buy it from me, that kind of thing. But if you look at it from a space of, I'm going to go connect to, today I'm going to meet somebody that's going to hire me. If you look at it from there, typically that's how it works out. So most of the clientele that I had built, of course, the audience came from local people that I met locally, but a lot of the clientele and a lot of the big businesses and a lot of the referrals came from people that I met at comic book conventions. Now, again, I have people say, I'm going to hire you, right? I'm going to buy this t-shirt. I'm going to buy this thing. I'm going to buy this, whatever the case is, and they don't buy nothing. That happens, right? So when it happens, try not to get excited. It's good to feel good about it. Don't get too excited until the paperwork is signed, until the invoice comes across your desk. Then we get excited, right? So that happens. But it's just really good to be able to say, okay, hey, I got this card from so and so. Let me email them and see how they're doing. Hey, so and so, I met you at Memphis Comic Expo. I hope you're doing well. I know we had a conversation about your comic book. I was wondering if you would be available to chat. That's how that goes, right? You have to step outside of your sort of comfort. I know a lot of us are introverts, and so it's very difficult sometimes to be able to have conversations with people we don't know. However, that's great practice for you to be able to sort of get in the mind of talking to and networking and selling your business and your artwork. So looks like we're losing light, and I don't have my other lights set up, and I know I have talked 90 miles an hour. If you would like to learn more about this, you want to learn more about Artist Alley, maybe we'll talk about this again next Sunday for Paint With Me Live. If you like a more chill live stream where there's not much chat, we're just sort of working and drawing on whatever I'm working on. It'll very likely be this next Wednesday. Join me on Wednesdays for Bring Your Own Project Live. In that one, we just listen to music. I'm super active in the chat, so any questions you guys may have, anything you want to talk about with me, I'm there for you. My email is always available. I don't know if I have that listed down in the description, but if you go to my website, just hit the contact form. I get your contact information from there. If you want to chat with me one-on-one, just talk. You want to shoot the breeze, or tell me about what you have going on, solicit services, whatever the case is, buy merchandise. All that information is going to be down in the description, and I would love to hear from you. So whether you're watching this live or the replay, I really, really appreciate you guys for being here. And I'm glad we got to talk about Artist Alley, because I tell you, I love comic book conventions. They're so much fun to do, and so much fun to just sort of go and just, if you people watching, if you're a people watcher type of person like I am, just see the people have fun and interact, and seeing people's eyes light up at your artwork is so fulfilling. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that today. But anyhow, be sure to hit the thumbs up. That helps me out so much. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. So if you would like to see more of these types of videos, you want to learn more about the art process, or whatever you want to know from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I hope to see you guys on Wednesday. I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. Peace.